We run the the work stream for Brighton AI on ethics and governance. So this is our event. Martin, Howe and Rose T. Martin and Rose, can you put your hands up? There's Rose, there's Martin. They are the co-leads for the Brighton and Beyond work stream. And Graham, who unfortunately is not very well, and Mary, who's up here, run the innovation and commercialization work stream. So we're all here tonight, apart from poor Graham, who's suffering a little bit. So I hope you enjoyed the evening. Just as a reminder, make sure you've got your Wi-Fi access ready because you're going to need it for voting. Very good. Without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Bisi. This is where it stops working. Don't worry, it will work, I promise. There we go.
Right, so pardon my voice, I'm recovering from a cold. Tonight's contributors, Brighton AI, which is all of us here, the team, Silicon Brighton. Silicon Brighton hosts the tech cluster of Brighton and Hove. We've also got the representatives of Sussex AI, which is a research group for the university, the Department for Business and Trade, so representatives from that department, and also representatives from the Brighton and Hove City Council are also with us here today. Thank you for coming. So now I'd like to introduce us to Julie Weeds, Professor Julie Weeds. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you in charge of
Oh, yes, I'm clicking for you.
Right, thank you very much. And I'd just like to welcome everybody here, both students and business representatives and from Brighton and beyond to this event tonight. I'm one of the co-directors for Sussex AI, along with Thomas at the back up there. I'll just introduce him as well. We are the co-directors of Sussex AI, which, if you don't know, just to mention it now, it's a centre of excellence at the University of Sussex. And what we're interested in is high-quality interdisciplinary research in applications of AI, which includes consciousness, machine learning, and biomimetic AI. And just to say a little bit more about that, to sort of give you a picture of who that is, we've got some faces up here of the people that are working in the areas within the AI research group, in machine learning, within biomimetic AI, and within consciousness. But we go beyond that, and what we do is we reach out across the university into other schools such as engineering, life sciences, the medical school, the law, politics and sociology, psychology, media arts and humanities, business, and mathematics and physical sciences. So it's much bigger than just the AI research group at Sussex. Just a word cloud to show some of the kind of interesting concepts that have come up in some of our recent research within the Sussex AI group. And what I really wanted to say a little bit about is what we try to do in Sussex AI. We're all about trying to do really high quality AI research. Highlighted a few things which I think are kind of relevant here tonight, that we're trying to build inclusive and collaborative research culture of AI for good. I think that's certainly something which is relevant to tonight's conversation about ethics. We're very much about facilitating responsible interdisciplinary and industrial impact. And again, that's something which I think is one of the kind of focuses of tonight. And we also want to be able to provide the state-of-the-art AI training and teaching, which is required for these other activities to go on. If you're interested in knowing more about Sussex AI or potentially working with us, and you think about what are some of the things that we could do together with you, we do consultancy and contract research with companies. We're interested in potentially having co-supervised PhD and master's projects with companies. There are ways in which we can get funding together through knowledge transfer partnerships, and collaborative funding proposals. We can do training. We've just launched a new initiative called Retrain, which we're sort of targeting small, medium enterprises who are interested in learning more about AI and how it can impact their business. So again, that's something which you can talk to me about or this evening or at a future date. And yes, we've got data science apprenticeships, we do hackathons and things like that. So anything of that sounds interesting to you, then let us know. And this is how you can contact Sussex AI. We've got an email address, which is ai@sussex.ac.uk. You can follow us on LinkedIn, on YouTube. And if you use that QR code, then that will give you those links to be able to follow us and to be able to contact us in future. But thank you very much for coming tonight, and I'm going to now hand back to the next person, who is you. No,
There we go.
Okay.
Thank you very much. And just to add very quickly, immense gratitude to University of Sussex for giving us this wonderful facility tonight. So I think a round of applause for the university. Should pair. There you go.
Is that working? Yes? People hear me? Okay, thank you everyone. So we've arrived in Brighton today from the Department for Business and Trade and really have had a great programme from Greater Brighton Economic Board. So thank you very much for that programme. And it was very fortuitous that you were having the AI event tonight so that we were able to come along and tell you guys a little bit about what we do, and also if it's not a direct service for your company, if there's something you want to talk to us about, then we can connect you into different parts within Department for Business and Trade or cross-government companies as well. A flavour of what we've got today is that Brighton is definitely very collaborative and welcoming, so thank you for hosting us today. And in terms of, so we work in foreign direct investment, and that means companies with more than a 10% foreign ownership, we can actually support them in growing and landing in the UK for the first time or expanding their footprint within the UK. So we work on projects that have high GVA, therefore generally more than $500,000 capital expenditure coming into the UK for a software project, for hardware if it's more than $1 million investments. We have specialised investor-focused areas across sectorial support. We work in terms of promoting net zero regional investments. So that's why we're here to learn all about the Greater Brighton area and what can we do to promote that opportunity to overseas investors to come and set up business here in the UK, and R&D. So they have to be doing something interesting, innovative. What is it that's world leading that would actually add value to the UK as well? In terms of commerciality, long-lasting productive relationships with both new and existing investors. So within my team, and thank you for Lee coming and helping me today, we have project managers and account managers. A project manager will be working with an international company that's landing in the UK for the first time. So we'd be positioning the UK in competition to other global locations. Like, why come to Brighton over Frankfurt? Why come to Brighton over Milan or somewhere else? Or you've got the large existing technology companies within the UK that are a portfolio that is account managed by Lee. So Lee has a number of investors and many are active in the AI area. So he's going to give you an example of the sort of companies that he'll work with and the trends that we're seeing at the moment from that portfolio. Do you want to do that now? Or?
Could do, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Caroline. Yeah, so I work with probably about 10 or 12 very large international IT services companies, and they are all investing heavily in the UK AI sector. As we all know, it's booming, and they come here and they invest here because of, well, various reasons, but access to talent is absolutely, you know, one of the main reasons these companies are choosing to expand and invest in the UK. That's not to say there's not a skills shortage in that area. Of course there is. We all know that. And I think one of the things I wanted to share with you guys today, which I thought might be relevant, and one of the trends that we're seeing over the last couple of years from these big international tech companies, is that they are really expanding out of London and engaging in this sort of activity that we call North Shoring. So they want to secure tech talent, graduates, PhDs, etc. There's obviously a lot of that in London. They're already in London typically, and they may be employing, you know, several hundred or even several thousand people in the capital. Where do they go next? And increasingly, they are looking at Manchester, and you know, they're drawing a circle around Manchester and realising that that takes in Sheffield, Leeds, Liverpool, and all the universities and all the talent pipeline that sits within that cluster as well. So I guess the challenge for Brighton is, in terms of, you know, trying to sort of leverage that trend, is, you know, what can Brighton offer? What are the specialities around AI? Because a lot of these companies are looking to bring in talent that you know, has you know, niche talent to work on particular market segments or applications. So I guess one of my questions, and I put this out to, you know, our colleagues from the local authority and the university here as well, is to sort of, you know, what are the specialisms? What are the niche specialisms here in Brighton for AI that we can convey to big business when we're talking to them? And not only just big business, actually, because, you know, a lot of my colleagues will work with that sort of smaller tier of companies as well. So I'll just leave that with you guys. Thanks.
Appreciate it. So as a service, or the things that Lee would do, or our other project managers, it would be in terms of linking companies to a location. So we're here in Brighton to learn all about location. What is the opportunity? How do we link them? And how do we make those connections suitable for them? You could jump to the next slide, of course. This is the team. So you've got some of us here today. So, and our director couldn't make it, but you've got myself and Richard and Lee here today. So we thought it was more networking. I think there might be more networking afterwards, but come and ask us any questions. We're happy just to have a conversation. If there's something that you're interested in, or there's challenges that you've seen in your business, our service might not be the service for you, but there's other parts across DBT that may help. So we're happy to take any questions. And when we promote the UK to AI businesses globally, this is what we will tell companies about the UK, about what's actually happening here. So in terms of the technology sector, we lead Europe in a host of metrics. So in terms of venture funding, we can access funding, and that's definitely coming out of the capital as well. There's been multiple growth in all of the regional cities. In terms of the overall size of the opportunities, the number of unicorns that have been created within the UK, IP generation, it's the collaboration with universities for sure. I think the UK is world leading in terms of innovation, R&D, working with the universities, having the challenge funds and growing there. The AI sector is growing. It's generating £14.2 billion alone, and the UK has raised more private sector investment than Europe, and we are growing. It's at the heart of the UK's government's plans to kickstart an era of economic growth, and we are building an AI sector that can scale across the UK and support the skills, the opportunities that are within our population already. So that was a brief overview from us, and come chat to us afterwards. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, that was excellent. Is everyone on the Wi-Fi, and are their phones registering the connection? No, you're not. Put your hands up if you've not got a connection, if you would. Quite a few people, wow. Okay, keep trying, keep trying, keep trying. Shortcut gets through it.
Matt?
Yes. So the way I believe it works,
Is you log on to the O2 Wi-Fi, and then it will send you an acceptance code. Let them just have a go. Okay, good. Ready? you like to introduce?
And now it's time to talk about, right. So now it's time to talk about ethics in AI, wonderful and interesting and always intriguing topic. With me is Dr. Shanaz. She's a principal lecturer in human-centered AI and interaction at the University of Brighton, and also a friend of Brighton AI. So please welcome Dr. Shanaz.
Thank you. Wow, what's the turnout? It's amazing, isn't it? Well done, guys. So let's crack on and rock on. So if I can operate University of Sussex system, that would be fantastic. Right. Let's say who we are, what we do. I am one of the principal lecturers at University of Brighton. I lead user-centered design and human-centered AI lab at Brighton. I'm not going to talk about how great we are, what type of amazing job we do, and how many students we have. I think I just put the QR code for you to have a look. This lab particularly, the reason I put for the audience today, because this is a research, innovation, and consultancy lab, not necessarily focusing on every aspect of computing and data science course that we are doing, but particularly for this audience. We provide knowledge exchange innovation service through KTP. And if you're applying, for example, to Innovate UK, you're looking for R&D department to work with you to accelerate the project from zero to something that you can actually acquire funding. We can support you. We are here. And the picture of robot, I'm going to talk about robot a little bit more later. So these are some of the sort of focus of the lab. I've got a number of colleagues, obviously, and PhD students, and undergrad and postgraduate students working with me. But pretty much we are looking at human-centered AI development. We are looking at user-centric design principle, UX, and the intersection of UX and AI together that can enable developing technologies that are centered around human needs, goals, motivations, and et cetera, et cetera. So the QR code is there. Please get in touch with us. And do I need to hold this, by the way? Because I'm shouting. I'm actually quite loud. Do I need this? Can you hear me?
You can either stand near that microphone.
Okay, that's fine. So let's go to the next page, please. Okay, so I've been asked by Matt and Bessie, thank you for putting a spotlight on me, to talk about what AI ethic means. So I've decided, this is like 6 p.m., not a.m. I'm not going to be a lecture here, say, do you do this, do that, do that. So I'm going to just point to a few resources that I personally have been looking at to educate myself and my students and use for a number of projects that I've been involved. Particularly, some of these guidelines are more important in managing and leading a project that is national, international. So from the US perspective to EU to UK, and one of my favorite one is Alan Turing guideline. The reason for that is, I think it's one of the earliest framework. It came into place when it came pretty much in 2018, when a lot of us, we were eager and excited to develop intelligence system that is ethical and with advancement of obviously large data set, LLM, etc., etc. Alan Turing was one of the pioneering sort of institute that put the framework in place. And I have used the sort of core principle of Alan Turing in my practice. And sort of the first exposure I personally had to Alan Turing was back in 2018 with a group of data scientists. I was one of the data scientists in a panel in Facebook. They were just literally inviting few of us in Facebook to talk about what are the ethical implications of the sort of AI. And at the time, it was before COVID, it was 2018. And none of these are sort of UK AI regulation did not sort of exist. So Alan Turing had some framework, and I like the framework in terms of looking at, I mean, me being a sort of
a person that I started AI in my PhD 20 years ago, looking at NLP, natural language processing. So for us, looking at CRISP-DM, anyone knows CRISP-DM? Data collection, acquisition, cleaning the data. So that aspect was so important. So having a framework enabling us to guide through data collection to designing a machine learning algorithm, applying, and also testing, it was quite important. So the Alan Turing principle providing, sorry, do you want to go to the next slide?
Yes.
Yeah, yes, please. Next, so Alan Turing enabled us at least to have a simplicity is very important here. I've thought to share this simplicity with you because you have your mobile in front of you. You are actually voting against some of the questions that Matt and Bessie sending to you. So these 5 core principles: fairness, accountability, sustainability, safety, transparency. I don't want to put a list of like a detailed sort of guidelines and framework here, so to confuse everyone further. But if you want, you can take a picture. So this pointing out non-discriminating, non-harm, fair, equitable data set when it comes to fairness. Accountability, again, you can see it has to be auditable, it has to be answerable. Sustainability, generally looking at a stakeholder impact, and this is quite excellent here because we have got a number of different stakeholders from universities to industry to sectors. So this is our opportunity actually to discuss what are the implications when it comes to stakeholders impact. Safety, accuracy, reliability, security, and robustness is another aspect. And obviously transparency. We want to be able to be transparent, to explain things in details, to be humanized, in other words. That's it. This is the one that you like, don't you? Yeah. Okay, so one thing is, nowadays I'm not working in NLP anymore. That was 20 years ago. But area that I'm working is robotic. Invested 2 main Boston Dynamic as, who lets the dog out? I'm looking at anthropomorphism as well as human to robot interaction. That's the area that I'm working, as well as the robotismian is another. It's my best friend, actually. They look a bit scary here. I picked up this video only for you guys. You do realize?
Very good.
Yeah, I just went to the lab. Everything was dark. I said it slowly. And then I realized my technician, Daniel, he was so lovely. He said, Sanaz, you're taking a video, but do you realize we sent one of the eyes of the robot to engineering art to be repaired? I said, they don't mind, actually. Our robot is like a little pirate. You're not a pirate of Caribbean, you're a pirate of Brighton. Yeah, excellent. Okay, so that's about this. So I'm developing sets of human-centered AI guideline for human-to-robot interaction. If you're interested to human-to-robot interaction, more than happy to talk to. And also NLP, natural language processing. These are the 2 areas I'm expert. However, at Brighton, I'm just only one person out of 100 expertise available. We are expert in computer vision, obviously different ML and type of modeling technique as well. So list of guideline. I like to emphasize on 3 again. I like to give you 3 bullets. Here, human to robot interaction, human-centered guideline. I think I'd like to point out partnership, co-creativity is important. Transparency, fairness, and accountability, and human control and compatibility. Through a number of research papers we looked at, particularly when it comes to human control, compatibility, these are the areas we need to discuss, as well as obviously partnership and collaboration. That can apply not only to developing a new machine learning system, but also when you are designing Gen AI for particular business, let's say. So we want to be, Microsoft call it co-pilot. I like to call it partnership and co-creativity. And obviously different people call it different things. So nowadays, everyone, they have their own acronyms, but we have the platform we can discuss about the implications. I think I've done enough. Oh, on another day, in the morning, 5 a.m., I woke up and I said, I'm going to just give my students some of the things they play. So I created my own human-centered AI GPT. GPT custom GPT. Then I sent it to Matt. Then Matt realized, oh, Sanaz, you made a mistake in the spelling. Thank you for recognizing. Yeah. And then obviously I said, okay, no, I changed it again. But what happens is with this custom GPT I developed, I gave exercise to my MSc class actually today. So they can actually learn at least some ethical aspect and human-centered AI aspect in a context of curriculum that I'm teaching them. So I thought it would be relevant for you. If it's relevant to test it, please let me know. And that's the QR code. And I'm going to finish up. I think I've done 5 minutes, didn't I?
I think you've done.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. That was absolutely excellent. Right, so let's get busy. If I can get this keyboard working. So first of all, I'd like you to scan the QR code or go to menti.com and enter that reference number, and that will let you into the application, I hope. As soon as you're in, give us a little heart and it tells us that you've connected. Look at all those hearts. Well, we've got 5 people in. That's a good start. 28, 30. Fabulous. Very good. So we thought we'd do something a little bit different tonight, as well as have a few guest speakers presenting some important information. We thought we'd get you to do a lot of the work tonight. So the idea of this now is we're going to look at a number of issues and get you to vote and get you to ask questions. And we're looking forward very much to seeing the results of it. So let's just test it out. Describe in one word how you feel about AI. Just one word, and click enter. And let's see what we get. Bubble. Oh. Bubble. Okay. Looking interesting. So as you can see straight away with AI, it's a very mixed emotive soup of opinion and emotions. It's very, very varied indeed. Some people are curious, some people are excited, some people are scared, and so on. And part of the reason for the foundation of Brighton AI is to answer a lot of these fears and these questions. And we feel very strongly that a lot of fear comes from a lack of knowledge. So part of the idea of these sessions is to create more knowledge in the sector, more knowledge around AI. So it's very important. But you passed the first test, you've got Menti working. So we're off to a really good start. I'm very impressed. So what we're going to do, we're going to look at 5 dilemmas that are all based around ethics. And the first one we're going to examine is around policing and surveillance. And we have a guest expert tonight for this, Stephanie Antonia. Stephanie, would you like to come and join us? Round of applause for Stephanie. I think it's a pleasure. Here you go, all yours.
Great, thank you for having me. I'm Stephanie. I didn't start my career in tech. I studied the Bible and I thought I would go into the church, but then went into management consulting and ended up on the business side at Google, and then thought the whole data privacy thing seemed absolutely awful. So went to study public policy at the Kennedy School, and then worked with DeepMind to help set up their ethics team, and thought that was actually awful. And then ended up at Google X, which was awesome. And now I've set up my business called Astora, and we look at how you use AI to move humans from fear to peace. So, dilemma 1, should our city implement AI-powered surveillance systems?
Sorry.
I think you've got to vote for that. All right, so I'll run you through some of the concerns and the positives. So, I mean, one of the big things in surveillance systems is aerial technology and drones. And so you're able to understand a lot more about what's happening in areas that are super dense. So festivals, protests, it's great for enforcement, and it's also great for search and rescue. That's one of the most interesting use cases. But the challenge is that you're effectively stalking lots of people, intimidating people. They don't really know. You have issues, especially related to protests, and how that maybe stops people going out. And then you have issues about other countries being able to see who is where and what that does for national security. Brighton is vibrant and diverse. There are a lot of issues with computer recognition and that computer vision, sorry, in that doesn't pick up skin tones in the same way. So it's very easy to get confused of people who are minority groups, and that can cause problems, obviously. Is it a deterrent? Is it over policing? And do people actually misuse the data? Because obviously a lot of people who do get convicted were innocent. So if we're going to put the data through historical stuff, there's probably going to be some problems. So now, yeah, now we've got a new question. Should citizens sacrifice their privacy for safety?
You can vote on it.
Yeah, I would say for the chance of safety. Good job. Okay, I think I'm going to do another one. Right, what checks should be in place to prevent bias in AI surveillance? I mean, if it makes you feel better, no one's actually worked this out, so. So humans. Oh, I like that. Do not use AI. Yeah, it's really interesting that everybody says humans. Yeah, random controlled trials to evaluate fairness and effectiveness.
Into groups.
Oh, right, okay. I think the big one there is that humans need to review it. And I think that's something that can be very relaxing about the conversation about AI, because we sort of talk as if, you know, maybe we have to do a little bit more work to get humans to be in control, whereas actually the systems just aren't that good. So obviously humans need to review it, because if you think about, I don't know if I should go on a ramble, but like if you think about what humanity's greatest flaw is, it's the inability to differentiate between fact and fiction. It's not our inability to process huge amounts of data or to be less productive. And so if we create tech that makes it harder to differentiate between fact and fiction, we're probably making life a bit more difficult for ourselves, but creating more jobs. Okay.
There's a lot of that.
Yeah. Right.
Playing with tech now, you see. You get the impression we're spitballing this to some
Yeah, exactly. I don't know how much you guys want me to talk, because I could talk all day, but
I think it'd be interesting if you could expand a bit on the human audit side. If you're
yes,
comfortable with that.
yeah, sure. So I think one of the big challenges with human oversight and human audit is that, well, I mean, there's loads. Like, firstly, when you spend so much money on these systems looking for cost reduction, you don't want to find out that actually what you now need to do is hire loads of people to review it at a huge level that's going to take hours. I mean, ultimately, all these systems have hundreds of thousands of people working, usually like in developing countries, just reviewing the data manually, because the systems really don't work that well, and that stuff's really expensive. So, you know, typically, like, you know, when West Midlands Police brought on predictive analytics, this was back in like 2012, the whole goal was cost reduction. So when you've invested all this money and then you find out that actually it doesn't really work, you need huge amounts of human oversight, you're probably just not going to do it. And that makes a whole heap of risk. Then the other challenge with the human audit is a bit what you were saying, the black box stuff, and we don't really know how the systems work. And people say that it's really complicated and that's why you can't know. But actually, a lot of the times it's just that the systems just aren't that good and they use proxies. So if you want to say if you were a bank or something and you wanted to say, do I think this person will pay back the loan? Will they pay back a mortgage? You might hope that your system is working out, do I think they'll pay back a mortgage? But actually what it's likely doing is looking through the data set and looking at proxies, and it might say, well, if you're black, you probably won't pay back. And then actually the question that your system is asking is this person black? And you don't actually know that. So none of the, a lot of the AI systems that we put in place do it in a black box. So we don't actually know what the proxies are that it's asking. So for example, if it's looking in a whole scale of people and it's trying to predict who might be a criminal, well, what are the ethereal criteria for what makes somebody potentially a criminal based on image? They don't exist. It's only on physical characteristics, which are also protected characteristics. And so the systems are likely doing a proxy, which probably isn't very good, but we can't see that because it won't tell us. So that's another issue of why it's difficult to have human audit and why we don't just do it. And ultimately, I also think the reason why we don't do human oversight, even though it's actually totally the obvious answer, is that it's just so disappointing in this whole AI craze. Like, it's so disappointing with all the hype about AI and all its potential to then find out that actually we now need to sit and just review everything because it's sometimes even worse than we are. So that's anything else on the humans? Yeah.
Would anybody like to ask one
Specific question to Stephanie around policing, the use of AI in policing. This gentleman here.
Aren't humans a source of bias?
Yeah. Yeah, so we are a source of bias. We're all limited by our own psychosis. That's the reality of being a human. And if we want to progress on certain issues, we can start by being honest about that and then moving like incrementally to get better. AI systems run on historical data. So we'll hopefully in society never be as bad as we used to be. So building systems that work on how we used to be sort of only makes it worse. And we just pretend that we're not limited by psychosis or that we haven't been racist or we haven't been sexist. And actually the AI system's going to make that all right. But that's just like a prejudiced belief in some ways, because yeah, we're flawed. Like we are flawed in many ways, but we haven't worked out how to make the AI systems not flawed. We've just worked out how to make them exemplify our flaws. And people do talk about synthetic data and removing it, but like ultimately, if your goal is to build surveillance, you can only go on what somebody looks like. So you can't build any deeper heuristic than surface level judgment. So like, yes, we're flawed. We have these limitations and we should operate within the reality of those limitations to make society move forward, not just pretend that they don't exist and then build them into the products, if that makes sense.
Perfect sense. Thank you very much indeed. Excellent. And now expert number 2, Fidel. This is you.
In fact, is this on? Yeah. As I so often do, I'll start with a disclaimer. This is my workplace, but I do have more than a little bit of an inkling of being a bit of a gate crasher because I'm not an AI expert in terms of the technology. I'm not a transport or mobility expert, and I'm not an ethicist. However, the last time I was in this room, it was for a school meeting, and we did debate a lot about AI and ethics. That's mostly to do with the volume of essays our students are submitting using ChatGPT up and down the line. But I am here as in my compare role, representing a corner of the business school, which is the Digital Futures at Work Research Center, which has been around for 5 years. It's ESRC funded, and we did do a very wide range of research there. Different colleagues led on different parts, the work packages, and we just were able to announce yesterday that we got funded for another 5 years. So hope to see some of you in that capacity. And in fact, I have actually hassled some of you already for a research project that I just completed on the uptake of generative AI tools by digital SMEs in the Greater Brighton area. But on to today's sort of task. So I was asked to lead discussion. That's at least how I interpreted my role on one of the ways in which AI can come in and really make a difference to placemaking, how we live where we live, and specifically in this case for Brighton and Hove. Oh, not yet. So Brighton and Hove, autonomous public transport. There are certainly push and pull factors for public transport in our town. Anybody who's tried to get anywhere that involved parking will have had that existential angst moment, I am sure, in Brighton. So public transport is something that we want, and there is a way in which AI could substantially scale that up. So let's see what the concerns might be around this. Would it be efficient? Would it be inclusive, enabling those who have access needs that are just not met by the current provision of public transport as it exists? Could it create, in addition to these, I was actually thinking, could it support our tourism and visitor economy substantially, especially when so many visitors have sustainability as a key concern? I'm just assuming, of course, that AI capabilities are bundled with sort of an EV, an electrification element, and just overall sort of a complete revolution. So why is this a dilemma? It sounds like a win-win in a way, but of course, the reason that I did come into this is because my field is where I'm a professor of work and employment. So the minute that we hear AI in my field, if we do a word cloud, we think of jobs. And in a relatively low skill, high volume occupational category like transport workers, we're thinking job loss. So that's where the dilemma comes in, right? Sort of what happens to the workers we would displace, whether they're in sort of the regular sort of public transport roles as drivers, as support workers, but also we have a very substantial volume of platform workers in Brighton and Hove. Some of them are supplemental platform workers. It's a side hustle, a top up. But for many, it's dependent type of platform work. That's their livelihood. So we don't have lots of these digital high-end, high value-added, high returns jobs, despite the fact that we are very strong in that. If you look at the labor market, we do have a lot of sort of a lower pay, lower status, more precarious jobs. So within those, transport jobs as they exist in the current technology are quite important. So it would hit a lot of people, and it would hit a certain segment of the labor force. So that's the dilemma. Yeah, is that sort of then these are the compromises that might be involved, sort of environmental gains, inclusion gains, potentially economic gains from an improved, better flowing tourism sort of sector, but job loss, and also maybe for certain parts of the community, loss of access, actually, counterintuitively. Is that a fair, Matt, sort of a summary context? I must say that I do have another local government role in another sort of town down the road, and transport is a huge sort of a problem. So in that sense, I'm very interested in that as well. So should the city control? Do we have colleagues from Brighton and Hove Council here tonight? Are you sort of thinking, how the hell would we even control it? Sort of, because, I think it's sort of we don't always know what the authorities are capable of, but so should the city limit control AI innovation to forestall the risk of job loss? So, okay, yeses they're the ones contemplating this ethical compromise. Not sure, but most of us are sure the yeses are going up. But the no's were more certain, right? They knew more quickly. The yeses were like, on the whole, there was a little bit more of a balancing of this. Is that everybody? No?
think that would do us.
I think so. What do we do next then? Sort of we do the open-ended question. So, and if you have the answer to this, I'm sure we can sort of do a lot across the country, not just in Brighton and Hove. So how could AI be used to make public transport more accessible for everyone? And that includes everyone. I think the first thing we think of is those with some access issues due to disabilities, but there's lots of issues in Brighton and Hove about community resources and in unequal distribution of sort of public resources. Okay, so direct travel disabilities, that's exactly the first thing, that improve information for passengers. So that's that's a different suggestion where AI can come in, not necessarily as part of the autonomous sort of transport bundle, but in and of itself, that could certainly happen. Okay, reduce obsolete resources, make it less expensive. Cost reduction through AI. Would that not replace some jobs? There's somebody probably doing something. Cheaper and more frequent, would it though? We don't know. Maybe we don't have enough of the empirical evidence that would need to go into a full assessment of this. But so I'm seeing a lot of information elements that would be an easier early step, wouldn't it? Sort of although I bet a lot of this is in place, you would know maybe better. Are we using is there any sort of generative AI capacity in the, well, actually it's not even with the council, so you wouldn't know. It does make a difference, of course, that who is the city and who is the sort of public, who is the transport sector, because we don't actually really have it in public ownership. So it would have to make sense from a private profit, bottom line kind of perspective. Okay, 45 responses. Can we record these so that we can take it back and use them when they're applicable? So I think the vast majority of the answers involved immediately sort of how AI can enhance information, disseminate information, empower travelers for what's there and connecting with what's the current transport that is available. Cheaper, it could be if we lay off some people, especially because that's probably the costliest elements. Autonomous vehicles. Okay, I'd like to hear more about that. Can I hear from someone who put down autonomous vehicles? Would you please? Yeah. So you could achieve efficiencies in sort of route planning and sort of matching that to demand, I suppose. Yeah, absolutely. Do you think it would work in, my first question about this was, would it work with the roads that we have here? I mean, I can imagine Palo Alto, but. Okay, so you're confident that the technology would work. Can I hear from anybody else? Because that's not self-explanatory to me, and then I'll wrap up after that, Matt. But autonomous vehicles, would you please? Yeah, hi.
One thing hasn't come up with the answers, which is I used to commute by train a lot. There's the whole thing about demanning the trains and just having a train driver without a train guard and the whole tube guard and train thing. So imagine with the bus in a scenario where the bus is a driver now, then it doesn't, it's AI driven. How safe the passengers going to feel, not because of the journey itself, but because of the other passengers. So
That's
if you're
right.
traveling alone at night, would you want to be in the bus that didn't have a driver or member of staff on it at all?
Really important point. Yeah. That's a very important point about how the bus is not just a mobility device from point A to B, but there's a sort of it's a public sphere in itself, and that constitutes, especially since we have a nighttime economy. I think that's added a little bit more complexity to the dilemma as we had initially posed it. Thank you, everyone. We are able to record these, Matt, are we not? Okay, so I would love to dig deeper into this, and yet let's see if it's ever financially plausible for this to happen. But thank you, everyone. I hope I didn't keep everybody too long. Yeah.
No, it's fantastic. Very, very good. And our next expert, can we bring to the stage Professor Novi?
Yeah.
Oh, I can just speak. So, hello everyone. My name is Novi Quadrianto. I have the most boring background. I did my PhD in machine learning. I did my postdoc in machine learning. I was lecturer in machine learning, senior lecturer in machine learning, reader in machine learning, now professor of machine learning. I'm even thinking to put machine learning as my last name. So, I work in algorithmic finance and algorithmic transparency. We have quite a sizable research group spanning across Sussex. Beckham, a Bach Center for Applied Mathematics Strategic Lab in Spain and also in Indonesia. So we are focusing on fairness and transparency. Most of our funding actually coming from European Union, but our first ever funding does come from UK SRC in 2017. That was about ethical ML. We did the Alan Turing Institute by 1 year, and that's when we came guidelines, right? So my task is, though I don't work in healthcare, I was assigned to healthcare by math. So let me just give some background about this. The city NHS Trust use AI. I have a limited experience with this. I was tasked to give a training session, ethical machine learning training session to lovely people from Sussex Partnership NHS Foundation Trust. So what I understood from them is bad occupancy in acute mental health NHS facility is at 100% or exceeding 100%. So with that particular problem means that they send the patient further away to the facility, further away from their home. So it means that they are away from their family, they are away from their parents. And one of the main drivers for this occupancy level is length of stay. How long will you stay in the facility? So this particular length of stay, it's not many NHS trusts actually try accurately or routinely predict this length of stay, although it's the main driver for this occupancy. Because we understand that the length of stay is very difficult to predict or to say something. It depends on many things: primary diagnosis, occupation, employment, housing, etc., etc. But this is like, for some of us might think that this is maybe the point where machine learning can help in terms of understanding, getting from all those factors that possibly can produce the length of stays or understand or predict length of stay. And if you be able to accurately predict length of stay, means that the facility will have a better bed management. But understanding that the machine learning is actually just trying to get learning from the past, what will be the patient, characteristic of the patient, and associated length of stay, and try to predict on the future, which is the next new patient, what will be the expected length of stay. As we already heard earlier, that when you learn from the past, especially when you learn from the previous decision, which is prediction that comes from humans, or observation that comes from human, that particular historical data might be biased. For some people, certain color, certain race, certain gender might be associated with longer length of stay or shorter length of stay. So that's the background story about, what is the NHS Trust might want to use AI, which basically they were trying to think about it last time. But we did manage to give them at least a good foundation on ethical machine learning training course. And the question for all of you is, the next question.
Again.
Should humans always have the final say in essential healthcare decisions? There's only one answer. Yes. You're welcome to cast more than one vote. If you want to emphasize that, you really like the answer. Yes, so you really like the answer. No. So who is saying not sure, by the way? Any things that would like to share? Why it is not sure?
I was saying no because the key part is should humans always have a final say. Yeah. Obviously, sometimes the main point is humans should majority have the final say, but a key point of it saying is biasm, whereas a lot of humans are very biased, their own personal views and everything. Whereas although AI is made by the the same people, a lot less bias in it, and it gives a very much kind of black and white outcome of it. So it should be a kind of a mix of both. Also, obviously, the NHS is always stretched in as it is.
So one interesting point about this question is, I'm not saying that I'm not an expert in legal, but as far as I understand, Article 22 of GDPR, we know what GDPR, right? We still remember about that. And Article 22 is actually saying that the human need always be in the final decision, actually. It is not allowed for fully automated decision, as far as I understand. So maybe those that are an expert in legal viewpoints might be able to comment more on that. So that's basically, I think it has to be the final say. The next question is open-ended, as we already seen from the previous question. How can AI system be designed to ensure equitable healthcare access?
I don't really use AI to do my healthcare. I'm using a healthcare system anyway. I'm speaking semantically. It's semantically challenged here. An AI system does not deliver healthcare. A healthcare system delivers healthcare.
Matt, any comment? That's my question.
Actually,
AI supported healthcare.
Actually,
AI healthcare system.
Actually, I do have a comment. What you've just said actually illustrates the importance of words and language in this whole AI debate. Because one of the things that we notice, particularly with the regulations and how people understand the regulations, is it's all down to how they interpret the language. So you're right, the semantics are absolutely crucial in this debate, and thank you for raising it here. I'm impressed how quickly some people can type with 2 thumbs and not make spelling mistakes.
Anything that it would be interesting to discuss?
The data is showing at the moment that AI every is also showing that it outperforms doctors to help them with it. My hope is that it correct the gender bias where in medicine we're using male models, we're not using female models, where discrimination. The oxygen meter that goes on your finger doesn't work to some people. We're not testing drugs on women. Hormones get in the way. So I would love for that bias for minorities and for women to disappear, and I'm hoping that AI can make.
There is a potential for AI to do that. I think it's like that's the idea that AI could do better than humans. This is what we always talk about, like when you want AI to be not biased, but human is biased. But we want the AI to be the same as human. We want AI to be not biased. We want AI to be transparent, explainable. Is human transparent, explainable? No, right? But so we always put an expectation that AI supposed to be better and complement us. And that's the idea as well, like that the AI should actually not replacing human. There is shouldn't be any discussion about being job loss, but AI that's supposed to be augment the humans, should have human to make a better decision, more informed decision. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for that in healthcare access. Of course, there is a lot of issue like how to make sure that the AI itself will not just replicate the bias from your letter side of your predictions.
So I have an acquaintance who is a medical doctor in the NHS, and his question is, which comes to the first part, which is, if AI takes a decision, so probably a woman in labor, and then it suggests to do cesarean section or something, it's taken that time of decision, but then as a medical doctor, you're also expected to look at the situation, and you might even override that decision. So what's the essence of having that that decision taken when you still need to do the job as well?
So what's the how the AI can apply that particular decision? So this is one of the projects that we actually do. It's a Tango project. It's a consortium to try to build a notion of deep human-machine understanding. That's involving 21 organizations, and Sussex becomes part of it. And one of the things about deciding this particular cesarean, we look into like augmenting actually on the level of pregnant women themselves. So it's like maybe they need some more information in terms of like, to making that decision, especially like maybe in the first pregnancy, they were already doing a cesarean. How about the second one? Are they going to do cesarean or not? Because there is a risk associated with both options. And the AI it's like try to help or give a better understanding about what are those risks and what are things that to consider and such. So this is the actually AI try to help the human, the pregnant woman, and the pregnant woman maybe can make a decision or better informed decision, and then they can talk to the doctor afterwards. So I mean, there is many ways, of course, like how the AI can supplement and augment humans, but in the end, someone needs to make a decision. And it's most of the time it's human because that's how it can work. Anything else, or maybe really now?
So we got time for one or two very specific questions for Professor Novi. Claire.
Just going back to what you were talking about pregnant women, I'm familiar with the phrase "many cooks." So, as a woman who's in very challenging time in her life, giving birth to a child, she's
when you're introducing AI, whether that's through a screen, robotics, however it's delivered, is questioning expert, and or it's supposed to be delivering more, but is it in fact, like how much research is done on it, as opposed to how much in those critical moments the decision needs to be made, is it actually causing impact to the patient?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I might not do a surface. This is actually the case study of the project that is led by the University Hospital in Heidelberg. So they are actually all medical doctors that try to see whether the AI can augment or can help them to give better information to the pregnant woman. This is still ongoing, still in the initial phase, but there's a lot of question. What kind of help or what kind of things that the AI can be helpful? Nutrition was one of the things that those medical doctors were actually looking at, but they were finding it that this particular situation about cesareans for the first case, and on the second case, whether cesarean or not, this is what they find is a most crucial use case for them.
It's the most human of moments.
Yeah.
Arguably.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but I guess like in the end, like when you make the decision and then you convey, you converse with the medical doctors. That's the.
Do you have any thoughts on prevention rather than diagnosis and post-patient care?
Prevention is always better than cure, right? So there's a lot of a technique actually, which is like algorithmic de-bias, algorithmic fairness, and one thing that perhaps I would like to say or highlight is like we always think that fairness is a trade-off. Like you enforce fairness or you gain fairness, you lose in accuracy of the system. But based on our research, actually, what we wanted to show that actually by enforcing fairness, by making it de-biased, your algorithm more robust. Because by doing de-biasing means that you look into those different various subgrouping, minority subgrouping of the data, and you break that shortcut features that you easily learn a particular feature, which is just looking at the gender or looking at the race. But by breaking that particular spurious correlation, you actually get fair algorithm, accurate algorithm, and robust algorithm. So you're actually going far by doing fairness, and that's a lot of techniques available to do that, including from our group.
Very good.
So thank you everyone.
And now expert number 4, Martin Howe from Data Labs. Martin.
I'll use the mic if I can.
There you go.
Yes, good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming. Is this actually on, or just there we go? Is that okay? You hear me okay? Hear me at the back? Yes. Yes. That's slightly more light-hearted, I think, so a bit. AI in tourism and local economy. A little bit of background. We get 10, 11 million tourists here a year versus a population of 50,000 or so. So a high skew of tourism coming to Brighton. There's a survey data that showed the second tourism-related activities, the second largest employer in the region. I think if you add in hospitality and all of those kind of service-related activities directly associated with tourism and local tourism, residents going out and spending money doing things, I think by far the highest. I was at a tourism conference a few weeks back where the Minister for Tourism was presenting, and he said tourism is the third largest industry in the UK. I think if you add in the other bits around it, personal spend as a resident going out and about and doing things, I think is even higher. So it's a significant contributor to economic input and probably growth, especially as perhaps we have more leisure days, as the work-life pattern changes. As we go into the future, perhaps tourism will be increasingly more important. The question that's on my mind, partly because it's something we're working on a platform that connects people to places regionally and very specifically, very deeply in terms of creating very immersive high-tech spaces, but also regional connections, both nationally and internationally. Part of the reason for co-founding Brighton AI was just to understand AI better and have conversations with people like yourselves around this topic and start to future gaze a bit. The question that's been on our mind often, and now is the time to start sharing these and getting more input, is should AI-driven platforms use extensive data to personalise the experience for our tourists, like our tourists, people that come to visit us, as well as us, friends, family, people from overseas, people that are driving economy? Should AI-driven platforms use that data to provide a better experience, tailored experiences, to make sure your day out is the best day out you can have? That's the thought that's been on our minds. And then the question that leads on to that is, of course, how much of that data should we use without consent? How much of that data can we gather without we really know about it? And to what extent should we engage you in the conversation about the data you're sharing and what the trade-off, what the quid pro quo is around that data? So that point there, tailored experience versus privacy. We talk about in our world, we talk about users being ninjas or divas. You see that in many social media experiences. People that want to be highly private all the time, highly private some of the time. People that really want to share, in some cases overshare. So that opportunity for AI to understand a huge amount about you and making sure it delivers content that makes your time out and about relevant. So the question that we presented here is, would you share your personal information? And again, as Matt pointed out, the wording here is important. So it talks about profile preferences location. The question doesn't ask you to share your name, your date of birth, your gender even, or your background. But we're looking, the question is, would you share generally your profile, your preferences, and your location for a tailored experience? Mostly no, it seems. Why is that? We have the opportunity to
Engage, yeah.
Oh, they're there, look. So no, why not? People who said no, and perhaps do you mind sharing why you wouldn't be happy to share your personal information for that purpose?
Gentleman in the
Anybody?
yellow shirt, orange.
Actually, an experience of going somewhere to tourist, trying to immerse myself in the place I'm going to, not necessarily go there and be coached for my needs. I want to be challenged. I want to experience the place I'm going to rather than the place I'm going to be right. So it's, I guess it's me to go somewhere is to immerse myself in that place as it is, not to go to the looks like my pub around the corner from home and eat the same food.
But to explore yourself and spend the time, if you can find the places that are going to be fulfilling time. Sorry. Anybody else get to share their? Yes.
Yeah, I used to run meetup groups and I asked profile questions in order to accept people into my group. So, and also I run groups on Facebook and I also asked them. But technically, I know quite a lot about the people in my groups, but I'm not really using it. But people are used to sharing a certain amount of information when they trade on my profile. So I put not sure, and now I've thought about it, and actually I'm going to sleep less enough. I'm encouraging people to do it because it helps organisers of activities and events and places to give people a better experience. Really.
Arguing for understanding your audience.
But I'm not sure if everyone wants to do it. You know.
You don't have a choice. Yes. Any other comments or thoughts? Must be hand up. Yes, the gentleman in the middle.
I think a lot of us are already doing it. When you go somewhere and you search Facebook, local to do it. Done that.
It's already happening. Any other? Yes.
So most people, unless they're determined, absolutely determined and educated not to share their information, our mobile devices are leaking information like this. So, for example, you go to a GP appointment with your mobile phone on. In the future, a commercial company that maybe extracted GP data legally, and we could then use that data, link it to location data. Say you went to GP surgery at a certain time, link you to what's supposed to be anonymised patient data and everything about your peer history, and that person's leaking that all the time everywhere we go. So most people are saying, oh, they're out, pretty much guaranteeing us to be really careful that everything's done about them to those stuff like Facebook, Google.
So there's an inevitability to this.
It's already really gone.
Any other good comments? Yes, please.
I was going to say, you seem like a nice guy. You'll probably use this for good, but I don't know if that's just me, right? But these days, right? I gave my data to 23andMe, right? And they're probably going to get sold, and who knows what happens to my DNA data. Administrations change. I think people are tarnished. And the important thing is we're not in charge of our own data. You don't have your own database and you can't say what you do with it. You put it out there and you don't know where it goes. So I answered no because of that.
I'd like to say something about that because I left the meetup platform recently because they were charging too much. But I also made sure I deleted everything, all our photos, any personal information anyone had given me, like phone numbers because sometimes I asked for it. I deleted absolutely everything because I was worried about data protection. But I don't think that other groups are that concerned. So that is a real problem.
Yeah. I've got a form to share. Track stuff on any other comments? So to the point around, I seem like a nice guy, but it's important, right? And so we are exploring as part of this the notion of sovereign AI, actually having AI the AI system owned and the data generated owned by a ring-fenced community. That's certainly a notion of sovereign AI at government level, but could you actually bring it down to a local level, actually have, when we talk about this AI in this place, Brighton, could that AI entity activity be owned or supervised or overseen by a group of, a process and a group of people that do properly provide governance over that? It's a question I haven't found the answer to. I've met with Peter Kyle, Secretary of State for Technology, asked him the same question. He's always talked to his AI people about the same thing. But the whole idea of sovereign AI and who actually owns, manages, curates, oversees the data, I think is an interesting one that we'll all, I agree with you, there is certainly inevitability to some of this. The question is how much can we provide governance over it?
So just relating this, I suppose, back to when the web was relatively new, there was this thing called the attention trust, the idea being that there's all this attention, that like attention's the valuable thing when it becomes scarce, right? And so the idea was that everyone would own their own attention data, so like what you look at, what products you browse, and then you could you go to a website and they say, can we have your attention data, and you sell it to them for like a fee or whatever, and that's fine, and that's a nice system, but that doesn't stop some other organisation from setting up another system where it's like much easier to use for everybody, but you give over loads of your data, so you trade convenience for privacy. And so it almost isn't relevant whether I've got control of my data, because unless you can stop every organisation from providing a super tempting way of giving you some value in exchange for your freedoms or your liberty, then I don't know, the concern goes away and is replaced by a new concern. And yeah, should we tell companies they aren't allowed to do things? Should we intervene in everybody's lives in a really potentially meddling way? Maybe that's the question.
Big stuff, isn't it? We're hopeful that we can do a lot of what we would want to do with truly anonymised data, and then facing with federated data where what's the responsibility for that challenge is with them. So here's, and I think that the question is not just tourism, right? It could be across a range of industries, but what are the risks of using personal data in the tourism industry? So yes, what's coming through here. Good system, this map, I like this. Ooh. Local societies lose their character. Are there any? We'll come around for Christmas. Fantastic sense of humour in this audience. Thank you. Yeah. Leaks. Yeah, it does. Yes.
Champagne and chocolate.
Yeah, there's some brilliant topic. Many of these topics touch on what we have been thinking about for many years, actually, in this area. I am optimistic, actually. I'm an optimist, which helps. But I think that AI can provide a lot of surfacing things that you didn't know about, like going to a new city with your best mates kind of thing. I'm optimistic that we can deliver that kind of thing anonymously and still make it valuable, but there definitely will be the temptation, no doubt, commercial pressure to drive that further. And these issues that are being highlighted here are extremely valuable to put into the mix. We would like, I think, to actually have a consulting body to refer to as we go through these challenges about how to deploy AI systems. There's some fantastic thoughts already shared about how you might do that. So, Matt, I love this system. It's brilliant. Thank you very much.
I didn't build it.
So AI is now gathering insights. Any specific questions for Martin on the last series of answers?
Some good stuff. Yeah, thank you very much.
AI is taking too long.
I mean, I assume you mean like personally identifiable data, because that's something like my height is personal to me, but it's not connected to my identity.
I think that's where the line should go, personally. Yeah. Unless you choose not to, I think it's definitely an opportunity kind of thing. It's just how, as this becomes more sophisticated, it's going to need to do this data collection and inference of you. How far we curate and oversee that. Early days, I think.
Gentleman here.
If you got a green light, what would be the first thing you'd see someone doing in this kind of space?
Good question.
If you could do something with personal data in the tourism industry, what's the most burning thing you'd like to do with it?
I used an analogy, and it's not a really good one because it doesn't really relate to Brighton, but it's about understanding the characteristics of the place, understanding the characteristics of you and matching those together. We did some work with Disney years ago, and they understand their machine, their place, their tourism base so well that they know if you park the car by day at 6 o'clock, you're going to buy so many fries at 8 p.m. They know that machine. I think we could benefit from building a better machine from this sort of chaotic place as Brighton. How do you do it? By keeping the characteristics of the place. That's, I think, the piece of the puzzle. So, did I answer your question? Around that way, I guess, yes.
So you kind of treat Brighton like a big private corporation, if you're using Disneyland as an analogy. You take that people come to the town and park on a train or whatever at certain times and pass the information out to chip shops to say you're getting so much by 6 o'clock.
Yes and no.
Yes. Into a big thing.
Yeah, I think there's a huge amount to be gained, actually, for many reasons. We work a lot in tourism and attractions around the world. There's a huge amount that can be gained from that economy, from that sector. And Brighton's a brilliant place because it is so unique. It is so much fun. You can discover so many things. It's far more fun here than any Disney park I've ever been to because of its characteristic. How do you put that together and keep the authenticity of the place intact? That's on our mind. Point at the back there.
Rather than thinking about AI, but looking at intelligent cities.
Yes.
They're not looking at personal information. Actually,
Yes, definitely, partly, but we think it's the people that make the place. That's place making, people making the place. What are those characteristics? I doubt Singapore actually know that in the way that we should here. I think Brighton's a good example of that.
One more.
Yeah, a lot of the controls we can do here in the UK or here in Brighton, but as you say, people from Singapore, from other parts of the world, and you can put the same requirements onto them, but on us locally, have to do that. But they, is that allowed?
Yeah, I'm hopeful that we start to attack those challenges during the course of next year. It's a very current issue for us. So all your thoughts and feedback have been very helpful. Thank you. I'm sure we'll be asking the question again over the months and years ahead. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Martin. And we welcome back to the stage Dr. Sanas for dilemma number 5. Online.
Thank you. I was just going. Right. So
Lots of interesting dilemmas. I wish I had the transport dilemma since my bike just recently been stolen. So I was crying out finding a solution with AI to find the location of my bike, which was stolen. So, but I am addressing very interesting dilemmas, and I'd like to see our demographic here. How representative are we answering this question? That is an interesting question by its own right. So the dilemma I have is resource allocation as well as social housing. We know that there is significant issues when it comes to social housing and resource allocation. So this is general context. I'm not expert in this domain, but I know at least in Brighton and Hove, obviously the social housing required by a number of people, the inflation is high, the immigrants, obviously the diversity of the people required, our students, our growing population. So the question I would like to introduce here is, first of all, it would be interesting to know how many people here actually have used social housing in the past. That's very good. Because it shows that the diversity as answer I'm actually collecting here. Because if you don't know who we are, if all of us are affluent from different backgrounds, this wouldn't represent the data. The data I'm gathering here doesn't mean anything. How many people have had their family members at the social housing issues? Oh, that's good.
I have another story.
We would love to hear from you, actually. You want to come here and deliver the session? I wouldn't mind, yeah. That's exciting, that's great. So, the challenges and opportunities we have with intelligent system obviously are huge. When it comes to, I like to say, what are the potential, what are the challenges, how my brain works. So the potential is for resource allocation. We know that data-driven decision required. So decision making that is sort of channeled by data. And this is not something new. AI is a new thing, but obviously the data-driven decision making has been in the past. When it comes to AI is not data analytics. I'm looking at AI in the light of can predict, produce new knowledge that we don't know before. So the opportunities with AI is it can support automation, efficiency, what else? For creativity with human, and also can identify patterns that we did not oversight ourselves by looking at the data. Even the data, which is very complex, three-dimensional data, we could not actually find those patterns unless the machine, looking at large language model, dive into the data and identify the pattern. So pattern recognition here, that's the way I define AI, because again, if I just say AI, what we mean by AI, I'm not looking at generative AI, I'm looking at more technical perspective of machine learning, what AI means here, and what parameters we can actually include in this process. So, factors you need to look at, obviously, what are the data, what are the persistence of the data, historical data. I think Professor also mentioned interesting aspect about historical data. A lot of machine learning data can be trained by historical data which are not relevant anymore. How often we clean this data? This is another factor we need to discuss. How, again, pointing back to data acquisition, data cleaning, this is really fundamentally important in designing the machine learning and AI that can actually support decision making. Because if the data is not clean, if the data is not valid, we don't get anything. So the opportunity is huge. However, when it comes to decision making process challenges, the biasness of the data that we gather can actually produce some biasness, unfair decision making. But at the same time, you mentioned about human can actually make that sort of unfair decision as well. How we can say human are not biased and the data is biased? Again, there's a challenge both sides. So my question to you is, can AI system truly eliminate bias, or may AI reinforce it? Again, when it comes to AI, looking at prediction, I think is important, not data analysis point of view.
Okay.
Second question, are we still answering that? How can we ensure AI-driven allocation genuinely benefits underreserved population? No answer. What does that mean? Because we don't know. Again, point back to our population. Are we there yet? No validation.
Every time it's about human control and machine.
Human control is the important aspect in many of the decisions came so far. Transparency with data sets. Transparency is an interesting aspect, actually. How much we can understand transparent decision making, that's another thing. If it's transparent, is it understandable? I mean, there are two things. If it is transparent, if it's understandable by human. Because sometimes transparency in a machine means differently from understanding how we understand. That's the best. Interesting. Yes. But there's a lady over there, actually. It would be interesting to, we can hear some of your insights, because you have been there before, so there is
Okay, so go back quite a long way, and I was living in South London with my ex-husband and my little boy. We were a mixed race family. He's from the Caribbean. I was the main earner. I worked in advertising. I lost work because I had a kid and I couldn't get childcare. Right? And I couldn't manage the whole rent anymore, and I didn't get enough housing. And the landlady, it's another black lady, but she wouldn't reduce the rent. Right? And basically, our council then was Croydon, and they told us that we would have to be evicted from the house, like just not pay the rent anymore. We lost our deposit. We were evicted. We had to put our stuff in storage, and then we were put in a hospital. One room. We stayed there for 7 months, and the majority of people in that place were families like us, families where not everyone was from the UK. I actually got some research at the time. I ordered some research about how this was such a problem for families like us and how many people were going through this. So as you're talking, I'm thinking, well, we had AI back then, would it have been better? Because I was calling the housing office every week to say, have you looked at your case yet? And I had this woman telling me on the phone, no, you haven't come up yet, your case number hasn't come up yet. Okay. And the only way we got an allocation on the estate is because I went in with my husband and my child, and we sat there until, well, this woman wasn't actually there, the boss was there, that guy actually, and allocated us a place, which was a terrible place, but it was somewhere to live. But I do not, in that particular case, human bias, like us going in and my husband and this guy getting on with each other, resulted in us getting to stay. But I do not know. I don't know how resources are allocated, because that's not the first time I've had a problem with housing. With 2 children. And the whole housing issue is huge and isn't fair, and rents are not fair, housing allowance isn't fair, and if AI could improve it, it would be amazing, but I doubt that it's that needs to be done. So I'm sorry, that was a bit emotional.
Thank you for sharing
was
such
horrible.
personal and emotional. I think it's really, thank you for your insight. Very important aspect you mentioned about biasness, as well as human biasness.
Well, human bias help us eventually.
Exactly.
But maybe the woman I've been talking to before that just hated me or something. We never got anywhere, and I just went and learned.
Very, very valid case. Yes.
I just think, well, it's more of a question. Have you looked at the people working in the housing rather than focusing on the data collection, which is to look at the information biases already there in harsh with lives, you know, as we like how would AI be able to augment that process?
Yeah, that would be very interesting. Yeah.
I mean, if you're asking me if I have done it, this is not the domain my expertise. Matt gave this domain as a dilemma to me, so I haven't looked at, and I think it's not easy for anyone to get those data either, because unless you work in a local government and it's very personal data, isn't GDPR in place, I have no idea how they will let AI and machine learning do that. I mean, you have knowledge of this.
So I'm cabinet member for housing.
You're cabinet, yes, so you can
Cabinet
answer.
member for housing and homelessness in Warren Borough.
Yes, okay.
So, just, I can't help myself on this. So I think there are points to be made about how AI can empower the staff. We are short staffed across the board, but really where it can really come in is preventive. And that throws up a dilemma about data and personal data, because what you can really, where you can step in before people become homeless, is seeing when they're about to become homeless, seeing their financial data that sort of indicates that they're just not going to manage 2 months down the road.
Yeah.
And that's where I think there's a lot of scope for AI, but it poses these huge privacy.
Identifying challenges and allocating resources before actually they become homeless, for example, supporting them, isn't it? Yeah. Yes, that's a very interesting point. So yes,
We've talked a lot about the use of AI effectively by authorities. We haven't talked at all about the use by what you might call surveillance. So the use of AI to empower individuals. And I actually think that's an opportunity here that shouldn't be underestimated, because it can bring information, it can release information and allow individuals much greater say, much greater power, and essentially resolve some of these differences in power relations that were primarily driven by you not having the information and them having the information about what was available.
Oh, yeah, you totally feel powerless. Like,
That's
you
very
try
good
to have
point,
rational
actually. Very good
discussions and
point.
it doesn't go anywhere.
You mean we could surveil the police?
Yes, there is a flattening available.
like rather than top-down approach, which the AI is given to government or authority to make decisions, we need to have a sort of bottom-up approach that actually empowers people to, that's very
There's a
good.
large global community of
very
people
good.
working to develop AI in open and transparent methods with open source software and so forth. So this is not a...
Yes, exactly. So crowdsourcing the sort of development as well. Yes.
Got time for one more very quick question. Yes.
So there was a time I actually was moving houses and I had to stay in a hostel. It was just temporary, but I got the opportunity to stay with a gentleman who was being abroad for just 1 month, and he literally was in the house. He's got his storage, his things in storage, and he's old. He's in his close to 80. So, and he said he was just waiting for a decision and blah blah blah. I feel one thing AI could also do is apply for high priority. able to indicate that
Yes.
certain people are priority.
Yes. Very good point again. To identify the pattern for priorities for urgent.
Very good. Yes. 30 seconds.
Okay, yeah, 30 seconds, yeah. So I just want to say, when we talk about AI stuff, we've got to be really clear on what problem we're building AI to solve. Because on the social housing one, there's not enough housing. We got to allocate it unfairly, and we don't want responsibility. That's the role of AI. On the healthcare one, there's not enough beds. We got to allocate it unfairly. That's the role of AI. And if we get everybody to debate the bias thing, we won't recognise the resource thing. And the reason why there aren't enough resources is because we're not taxing the AI companies. Like, it's great that you can use AI to predict cancer really quickly, but actually people are dying of cancer at higher frequency because they can't get appointments with their doctors. It's not difficult to reduce cancer rates. You pay more tax and you offer more NHS stuff. So to your point exactly, like, the whole conversation is anchored specifically so that we don't see that this is being used to reduce our rights, to reduce our resources, and not actually to give us more. But it's totally in our power to build AI and to use this technology for totally different things. It just requires a different conversation and just clarity on, like, what is the goal, what's the purpose, and how do we actually expose more of what's going on.
I was just going to say, on the housing, it isn't just about resources, because as a single parent, there were places that we could stay that were vacant, but I couldn't get enough housing allowance to be able to stay there. Our housing allowance levels were set.
We
But, I mean,
also
if you count
point back
that
to
as
one
resources-
size doesn't fit all. So AI can suggest this, but at the end of the day, we need to have human-centered development. Because that's really looking at the individual cases, and in addition to augmented with AI data, but also human.
Or just have systems that are actually fair and
Fair, yeah.
With that, unfortunately, we've got to draw the dilemma discussion to a close. Thank you, Sanez. And now it's time for you to ask questions of the panel. So can I ask the panel members to come up and just stand along here for me? Adol, Novi, Martin, Stephanie. Okay, so it's just a case of grabbing a question that you feel that you would like to answer. At the moment, we've got one. There must be more than one question for this Illumini. You have to put it on Mentimeter. Got to use the tech, my friend. So there we go. We've got 5 questions. Who would like to grab that one? Autonomous robots to build more houses. Martin, you've got thoughts on that.
Yeah, go on. Planning permission. It's about quite an integral to the problem. Yes, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of autonomous machines to do things. I know it's huge implications elsewhere, but those problems need solving a different way. But yes, definitely we need more homes. We know that's a problem.
Very good. Thank you, Martin.
I second that.
Oh, see, I go against that because we have lots of empty homes. We just
well.
turn houses into assets.
It's a financial instrument, so we've got loads of empty houses, so we could just change policy to free those up.
As well.
Yeah.
And renovate them, obviously, require.
Oh, some of the nice, in major and everything, yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So who on the panel would like to tackle that one?
It's work avoidance. We don't want to solve homelessness. We don't want to solve hunger. We have enough food to end hunger. We have enough money to end poverty. We have enough trees, seeds, and land to end climate change. But we hate ourselves, so we're doing all this.
Would anyone from the audience like to come back at Stephanie on that one? Somebody must have a strong opinion. What about some of our students? What do you think? Do we have enough resources in the world if we manage them correctly? How did you manage to throw your voice like that? That was brilliant. Okay, we're going to mark that one up as answered. So let's find another question. There we go. How do you use AI in your daily life? Odile, would you like to have a crack at that one?
Probably in ways that I'm not aware of is the main answer to that. I have been thinking, because as academics, sort of we're dealing with sort of students producing all this work, and I was I think we're very slow and shy about looking at it because there's an element of threat to our expertise. But I do think there are ways in which it can come in and to deal with the voluminous elements of what we do. That's relatively routine. And I've come around through my research actually to a more of an augmentation, scope for an augmentation, skills augmentation story for what I'm able to do so that it would free up time for me as an academic to spend more face-to-face individual time with students, for example. Because I've lots of, the routine things that I have to do, I'm not able to dedicate that kind of time. So I think it's coming in a little way, but I think it could come in a bigger way without sacrifice of quality of the relationship with students.
Thank you, Abdul. Anyone have any idea how to answer that one?
Cool.
I think we would leave that one for the moment.
Oh, come back to that one. That's fascinating.
Okay. Whose question was that?
I don't know whose it was.
Was that yours?
No, well, I reckon, I'm happy to blabbering with that answer. They're
Go on.
that close to actual real intelligence that they're panicking.
When you say real intelligence, do you mean artificial general intelligence? Right.
The ones with ethics that will fail, it's just about how to have the right controls. Right. Yes, also.
I think it's the opposite. I think they realise they can't make any money off it and they're not winning at all.
Okay.
And it's such a scandal that the tech isn't anywhere near where people say it is, that Microsoft invested so much, they're just going to have to slowly wind it down quietly so that it's not like a big scandal. But the people who already left OpenAI, they left to set up Anthropic years ago because of the ethical things. So that team of people left, they went to Anthropic. They've already left now.
You're happy to lead the conclusion.
So people did leave, they did run, but they ran a long time ago.
I agree with you actually, and I think they're not for
Artistic differences.
I think one of the problems are regulation problems because it's moving along much faster than any regulation can catch up. And there's a skills element to the regulation because who's going to sort of look at sort of assessing what the AI does? There's sort of a time lag, I think, in that. But I think the binary questions are just wrong. The question isn't so binary, AI versus, it doesn't play out that way.
Thank you, Adol. This one has to be for you, Sanaz.
I think it is the hype. Although I am using AI, I've done my PhD 20 years ago in AI, natural language processing. But it's now, the past 2 years, because of generative AI, everyone got excited, Gen AI. But I think this will slow down, because then you see, not generative AI can be a solution to all problems we have, actually. We need to be careful what we can ask and use AI for. So the right question we need to ask, rather than just trying to find a solution that can be solved by AI. This is my view. I need to be carefully designing machine learning algorithm that can actually solve a particular problem, rather than just applying large language model to many different scenarios. Then we realize, oh, everything like human life would be at risk, or people are losing jobs, and there will be lots of errors in between. And obviously, because this platform they use is sucking the energy we have, so issues of sustainability is huge. That's why AI companies now, they're investing in nuclear sort of funds. So these are the issues in the next 2 years. And when all this hype is slowed down, then you realize, oh, there is a sustainability issue we need to address with the climate change, how we can actually support the energy of all this large language model to feed to the population. So this is my view, basically. I think it's the hype. It will go down after 2 years, then people, they realize, yes, there is a solution, but not for every problem.
It's a very interesting future to think of the big tech companies earning and owning nuclear power stations.
Yeah, nuclear power, yeah.
Yeah, so turning our electricity off when they feel like it, when they need a bit more power. So let's have a look at another one. How do we, I don't know what that means. Does the future with AI look bleak? Novi, one for you.
The jury is still out. There is potential to be good. There is potential to be bad. And I would like to add as well on the regulation side. I think AI regulation, it's not catching up with the AI innovation, but what it can regulate instead of the real regulation is us. You know, I talked with one of the credit scoring companies in the UK, and they were emphasizing about that, but they were saying that, but you know, if the customer are educated, then they will know that they will choose the company that actually consider this, like, you know, ethical, trustworthy, fairness, machine learning algorithm. If it is needed to be used machine learning algorithm, they will choose that particular company to use the service. And this is it's not on the regulation side, but it's on us. If we are educated, we will be able to shape the AI for good. I think that's the message.
Go on, Stephanie. I know you're dying
I was going
to
to say,
comment.
it's like you can't really look at the AI stuff without looking at the economics. There's AI, there's regulation, and then there's just the financial markets, and that's the reality that we operate in. So the future of AI looks like huge wealth consolidation. It's what's already happening now. It's what AI is being used as a blanket for. And so when the bubble pops, we'll realize that we're not in a democracy anymore, that we're actually working for these effectively tech wars. Like we talk about how data, that's where our money's worth, like, you know, or like data's worth something, but actually data's not worth something. Like in the future of work, everyone has jobs. You're clicking 7 hours a day, you're just working for free. That's where they make money. It's literally labor just on these apps, plowing the fields all day long, but you get it for free and they're making the money, and that's been happening for long enough now. And AI is the total consolidation where you can be controlled. Like that's the power of Gen AI. Like the true financial profit model of Gen AI is that you now have one source of truth that's totally controlled by the private sector, and you can become malleable. You can all decide that you want one pair of jeans, and they can rise that company up, and you can be controllable, and you can be regulated, and that's how you can come to one global structure. And so, like, tech is just one part of it. It's sort of irrelevant because the bigger piece is the economics and how it's being used, and whether it will be for good or bad just depends on what the profit model is. And the profit model is advertising and global consolidation into the hands of few and few and few. In the next 5 years, the GDP of Africa is going to hand over to like the children of billionaires. Like GDP size of Africa, like in revenue, is going to hand over to like 100 children. Like this is the level of wealth that's been consolidated right in front of our eyes, but we're discussing about bias. Well, we know that, like, you know, sexism's increasing. Don't know if you're watching what's happening globally. It's not going, like, we can see what AI is doing, it's not going up for human rights, like, but we're still debating that while everything else is coming out of our pocket.
Thank you, Stephanie. And that was a very, no, rightly so. And that was a very nice segue into Martin's question.
Thank you. Oh, wow. Isn't that a big one? We have had a few tech cluster sessions. We had some with some higher education and school teachers. And it was worrying for me to come away from that evening seeing the bleak expressions on things. People said, we don't understand the technology well enough to teach the kids how to use it. I'm hopeful there's an answer there, but it worries me actually. It's 10-year-old. How do we? Well, big topics, aren't they? How do we teach them how to use the tools? How do we teach them about truth? How do you teach about self-discovery? All these things, especially when you see what's going on with the political climate as well at the moment. These things make you scratch your head and say, "That's a question I really don't know the answer to." I'm afraid I'm worried actually about.
I don't think you're alone in that concern. Odell, this question absolutely has to be for you.
Yeah, and it's a big thing for our centre, but I mean, the UK, first of all, large firms in the UK, they don't even have very serious levels of digital infrastructure in the ways that we would expect, let alone AI. So it hasn't arrived yet. So there's a lot of unknown about how it's going to arrive, etc. And a lot of what we think that AI does the platform economy, etc. Actually, it links up with physical labor, and we always forget about that element, right? So I don't know that the disruptive element it will be disruptive, but I'm not sure that it's going to have the job loss impact that some critics. Because it's much more at the task level, of course, that things are changing rather than sort of job level. So I'm not that scared. Let's put it that way.
Well, that's encouraging. Very good. Excellent. So we're almost there. Whoever it was that needed a coffee desperately, you're getting closer by the moment. So we're going to ask you some questions in a moment about the experience. But first of all, I'm going to hand over to Bissy with the panel to just summarize some of the threads that have come out from tonight's discussion. Bissy, if you would.
Thank you, Mark. So there's so much to uncover and to unpack from these conversations. It's never like an evening is never enough to unpack everything. But personally, for me, the theme of having the human in the loop is very important. Issues around data and privacy still very important as well. And personally, I think AI can be used for good or for bad. It's a tool, depending on who uses it. It's not like something that can determine what to do on its own. You need somebody to like say, oh, do this or do that. So we determine how to use AI, and we should think about how we're going to use that in an ethical manner. Right, so those are the main things I take from the conversation. Based on the Mentimeter responses that we got for each dilemma, is there anything that you feel you want to expand on from the responses we got onto the questions we asked on each dilemma? In terms of AI in housing, tourism, the responses we got. I think the one about AI and tourism was interesting to me. People were like, they didn't want that. They wanted to experience Brighton for themselves. That was kind of new to me. Matt, do you want to talk about that?
It's not it's not new to me that the first reaction is no, but actually, in a service economy, when you get good service, you really appreciate it. So the experience, I think, will prove to rise to the top. The service economy and having human in the loop, providing that face-to-face experience. We know from the pandemic that being out and about with other people is huge. But I think in terms of, I think the world is extremely inefficient building houses, solving housing. We're extremely inefficient the way we work and do things. And I'm optimistic that these technologies will help provide the utility to take away some of the drudge and move through these things that we struggle with far quicker. And then you get the big questions, the ones that you're raising about the extreme wealth divide is going crazy, isn't it? That's going to probably continue. And these are big issues that's we need humans in some authority to actually regulate. What we've seen most recently was that to concern, doesn't it?
But that's where your work comes in as well, in the human-centered design, because we need AI to block it. We need like AI as weapons to block that stuff.
I like the idea of empowering populace and giving them more data and access to information to make better decisions. That's great. Worrying whether people use it in the right way now. I think it's what's just happened. Surprising, isn't it? But
talking about the divides, something that I usually ask myself is what happens where one part of the world is able to use AI and another part can't use AI because they're not AI literate, quote unquote. So what kind of world are we creating? How can we ensure that there's this AI literacy globally and not just for first world countries? Do you have an idea how we can solve that problem? I don't know that it's a country or a north-south divide, but there's a huge ownership problem with big tech, obviously. And that's the structure of the sector, and that's a huge problem. And I think it sort of gets in the way of us using AI for greater fairness, because, for example, where I can see it come in is high volume, low resource content, like the public sector. There it could really sort of scale up what's possible to do with limited resources. But that's not where it's coming in. So I think, and I don't know that it's possible to change the ownership structure now that it's so consolidated. But maybe sovereign AI is sort of, Europe doesn't have really sort of anyone to combat. This is a very Silicon Valley, and let's see what that's too robust now, probably. So let's see. I mean, I think that's the real obstacle to sort of getting it to deliver more fair outcomes.
I think it's structurally based on colonialism and empire,
and that structure's sort of already been set, which is why there's been such a big push to create the infrastructure to build free internet. I don't know if you heard about the Amazon Fresh scandal, where it was just teams in India just watching people and then tabling the bills. Like, there's so much that going on, even with Elon Musk's robot thing. It was just his staff in the back doing it, but a lot of that is happening in developing countries, and so we already have this. We've already built the exact same structure we had before, just we just call it AI now. So it's about sorry, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer yet, because I do think AI can actually fix this stuff, but I just think we've got to be clear on what the problem is, and then build on human-centered design stuff on, like, well, how do you build for the best of humanity? How do you build as if we're all one, as if we're community, for forgiveness, for mercy, for like everybody to have enough? And we need AI tools for that. And so I think AI is the answer, and we should all be building stuff. But I just think from a different mindset that actually leads us to what we want. Yeah, so like even for the child piece, like, so one of the products we've invented is called Digital Health Score. So 1 to 5 green thread score, and it shows you the likely psychological impact of your online content consumption. And you see it for yourself, also a parent can see it for their child. It's actually so obvious. We did it for film, we did it for schools, we did it for energy. Like, everything gets a RAG status, so you get for food, like, so you can see how bad it is, except for the internet, because we're all being lobbied to hear that it's too complicated. But like, there's so much that we can do that's so obvious. That's just like an open goal, basically, for anybody now, because so few people are thinking about it. So everybody takes a class. Yeah, thank you.
That's very kind. I think that, yes, I mean, I second everything you said, obviously. The fairness also needs to be defined. Is life fair? That's the question, isn't it? So how we define fairness, and this is really philosophical topic too. I'm too late now. We go deep into this. Yeah.
Thank you, Sanas. And I think just to sort of wrap up on tonight's event, a question for you just to think about is, if we don't have narrative in rooms like this, who is having the narrative around the implementation of AI? And it's the big tech. And we know that for sure because of their power, their influence, their wealth, their political influence is growing day by day. And they have budgets that we can't dream of, paying students out of universities £400,000 a year as data scientists. We can't compete with that. So unless we work very hard as communities to have this narrative and have these discussions and empower ourselves to control the implementation of AI, we'll end up with dystopia, not utopia. I prefer the latter, and I think you all probably do as well. I get the feeling that Stephanie definitely does. Thank you very much for your input. We've got 2 questions for you to answer. Two more questions on the Mentimeter, and then it's coffee time.
Beer time.
Or beer time, yeah. Oh, it is working. Wow, it suddenly like appeared. You know, fantastic. Very good, very good, very good. Excellent. How are we doing? 23, 24. Excellent. And we move on to the next question. And then you're going to do the credits, yeah? Yeah. Okay. Just what you got to do is click through, or you can click through on the screen. Yeah. And thanks. Oh. It's just going to picture. And it's thinking. This stuff ain't easy.
That could be a great article title for.
That is a wonderful article.
You have to use this for research. I can see you.
But it is actually a really good point because we all get really excited about the shiny stuff, like playing with Chat GPT and doing all this amazing stuff. Do we stop to think, should we, and how should we? Very good. BC, over to you. I'll click through for you. Thanks very much indeed, everybody. There you go.
Thank you everyone for sharing. Thank you everyone for coming to share and with us. And our next event is next year, January 8th, and it's going to be at Plus X, and the commercialization and innovation colleagues that will be hosting. So that is Mark. Why did you change it? That was
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, who's hosting? So that is Graham and
Mary.
Mary. You made a mistake. That's Mark.
Oh.
I was wondering who as well.
Get rid of it.
So the next event will be at Plus X, and we'll be posting it on our Meetup page. So please do look out for that. What's Gemja? Thank you to Sussex AI, Silicon Brighton, the DBT, and our experts, and everyone who came today. You're amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. Magnificent. You're exactly what I thought you were going to be. That was brilliant. You're a superstar. Thanks, Martin. Good stuff. Good, good. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. It's wonderful. We're going to get going. Bye, darling. Yeah, I'll see you at home. Oh, okay, okay. Thank you very much, Nomi, for coming along.
Thank you for organizing.
Well, I thought it was really good.
Right, yeah, I mean, it's
very different.
It's a good idea of,
yeah,
the community.
Get them working.
I don't know whether you know about the AI Act.
Yes.
They are still working on the harmonized standard, like how to contextualize whatever terms in the article. And the one that's coming out with that harmonized standard is actually a company, industry. So it's like never involving like people, it's just like the community.
Right.
And then they come up with the harmonized standard, and then they have the conformity assessment, which is they're doing a self-assessment. So just like industry
and then self-assessment.
And then they're doing assessment themselves as well, based on their standard. So that's like, AI, it's a good